Today, I am excited to welcome Angie Berghaus, and she is the proud owner of a dog named Cooper. Angie, tell
Yes.
us about Cooper. How old is
Well,
he? What breed is he? Where did you get him from? All the things.
sure. He's right next to me, so I'm gonna try to get him up here. So Cooper is a 9-year-old Beagle mix. We don't know what he's mixed with, but he's like a tall, kind of like a tall Beagle is what I like to describe him as. He was adopted as a puppy from Little Rhodey Rescue in Rhode Island. We got him right when Nolan was a toddler, so I always thought it'd be good to have a puppy for Nolan to grow up with. And little did I know, a puppy and a toddler probably wasn't the best idea at the time, but no, he's a great dog.
Awesome, awesome. Now, you said you adopted from Little Rhodey Rescue,
Mhm,
and I realize it was some time ago, but
mhm.
tell us about what that process was like for you.
So we had lost our two dogs right when Nolan was born. One had seizures and one had a mast cell tumor that just it was kind of taking her, like, causing her to decline. And I was really upset about it. So again, I wanted a dog, and we looked around, and we found Cooper, and it was an easy process. We did the interview when we talked about our experience with dogs, and I think it was a pretty fast process. We ended up going and spending some time with him, and it went really well. We got all the records, like everything was good to go. When we had our other dogs, one had heartworm, which wasn't disclosed to us until we had our vet check the dog. And so we wanted to make sure everything was good to go and everything was all set for him. And again, I just can't say enough good things. And even after we adopted Cooper, I was able to keep in touch with the director of the rescue, and any questions that we had about him, they were right on top of it.
That's awesome. Now, where did Cooper come from? Did they tell you kind of
Hmm.
like what his background? I know you said you adopted him as a puppy,
Hmm.
but I
Hmm.
mean, was he part of a hoarding situation? Was he?
That I don't know. I do know that we got him from Tennessee. And I don't know the situation, but I'm thinking it probably wasn't great just because he didn't like to be, crated. He did, had a lot of anxiety, which he still kind of does today, which we help him work through. But yeah, that's kind of all we knew about him. But the funny thing is, when we adopted him, I said, "Oh, he has like a cropped tail," which I thought it was like done maybe down in Tennessee. But we took him to our vet for the checkup, and they said, "No, he was born without a tail." So it was just one of the unique things about him that I thought was really interesting, that I thought it was done purposely, but he was born without one, but
Mm,
doesn't seem to bother him, and he does fine.
yeah, yeah. Now, I know you mentioned that he didn't like being crated much, and
Hmm.
he sadly suffer from a little bit of anxiety.
Hmm.
And I'm glad that you mentioned that. Not that I'm wishing that on your dog, but
Hmm.
I think what sometimes happens is especially when you adopt out of state or you adopt online and things like that,
Hmm.
you don't know the whole story and you don't know what you're
Yeah.
getting.
Hmm.
But since you've had Cooper for 9 years, you've clearly made a commitment to this dog and
Hmm.
wanted to work through it. How did you work through the crate training? And it sounds like you've made some progress in the anxiety. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so we got Cooper when I was married, and I think it was also, maybe like a stressful environment, or he just, he was digging holes and he was kind of doing everything that the puppies would do. But we found that transitioning to a different environment, having him try to socialize with other dogs. He's very sweet, but one of the things, if you see him, his back legs like to shake. That's kind of like when we know that he's kind of anxious in different
Mhm.
situations. We tried working with a trainer who was great, but it was just really more reinforcement on our part and helping him, acclimate to different situations, like taking him out to like Home Depot, wherever we could go to socialize with other people. He's still a little hesitant with that even 9 years later, where I don't. It sounds kind of bad, but I don't like let him or let other people get near him, especially
Mhm.
if he doesn't know them. He even does that to my boyfriend's family. Like, he knows them, but he still gets nervous, especially if people get up really quickly. So that also makes me wonder if there was any abuse before we got him too, because he still may hang on to some of those feelings too.
Mhm. Mhm.
I'm not a dog expert, but that kind of makes it seem like it to me. So he can be reactive, but never has bitten anybody, but just because he's uncomfortable, unsure of the situation. But my boyfriend's, like, he's their best friends because he's helped him a lot work through a lot of those feelings that he has, and he's a lot
Mhm.
a lot more calm compared to where he was 9 years ago. So it's
Mm,
definitely helped him a lot.
yeah. Well, he's older too. I mean,
Yeah.
he's 9.
Yeah.
So, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I think probably from age like 7, ishing, but
Mm-hmm.
on, they tend to settle down. They become,
Yes.
little old souls,
Yeah. He
at a
sure
certain
is.
point. But, yeah, and I think that that's great. You talked a lot about what you do to kind of protect your dog and
Mm-hmm.
advocate for your dog. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
the idea that you don't allow people to just walk up to your dog, or you don't, there were certain situations that you don't put him
Mm-hmm.
in order to be sure that he's set up to succeed, regardless of what's going on in your life. I think is great
Mm-hmm.
because you always hear these stories of um, people not doing that and things going terribly awry.
Yes, absolutely.
Kids get bit, other
Mm-hmm.
dogs get bit, things happen, and
Yeah,
that's how dogs get euthanized. So it's
absolutely.
wonderful to hear that you're just like, there's just certain things I don't allow to happen,
Mm-hmm.
even in spite of
Mm-hmm.
the fact that we've worked through it.
Yeah.
Um, and I do think that in some situations you can make a lot of progress, but they never really
Mm-hmm.
go away. And there are some
Yeah.
situations that, okay, we need to make this go away. And the dog needs
Yeah,
to understand that this isn't how they're going to behave, but some things just
absolutely.
aren't that simple. So
Right.
what would you want? I know you said your dog is kind of a beagle mix.
Mm-hmm.
Were you, when you were looking for dogs to adopt, how did you choose Cooper? I mean, it's not like you went to the shelter and spent time. Your
Mm-hmm.
search was online at first. How did that? Why Cooper above probably 1,000 other dogs that you saw online?
So obviously, Nolan, his well-being and safety came first. One of the dogs that we ended up losing, unfortunately, was a red bone coonhound, who I actually found out about the breed. There was a dog running loose when I was at the gym, and I ended up taking the dog home, not knowing if it had an owner. And we found out the breed and how beautiful they were and the temperament. So we were looking initially for a red bone coonhound. They had a different type of coonhound, a treeing walker coonhound. So that's kind of where we were thinking. But we went with Nolan. My ex-husband went with Nolan to see the dog, but this dog was jumping like behind the fence, just jumping really
Oh
high.
gosh.
And we actually unfortunately had to rehome another dog, another coonhound that we had adopted before we got Cooper because he actually was food aggressive. And Nolan being a toddler, anytime you walked by her while she was eating, and we're mindful of that too. Rescues can sometimes have, that food aggression because they had to share food with other dogs. But
Mhm.
unfortunately, we didn't feel comfortable with that because, being a toddler, he can fall, not intentionally wanting to get near the dog, and something could have happened. So that was our main focus. Kate from Little Rhodey Rescue said, you know what? I don't think this dog is going to probably be the best just because of your son being so little. So she showed us some more dogs, and we saw Cooper, and we kind of just fell in love with him. He has a great
Mhm.
temperament even for a puppy, and he's very gentle around Nolan. So we thought that he was the best fit for our family.
Mhm. Mhm. I think it's great that the rescue was, you know, really taking into consideration the things that you were concerned about in
Hmm.
terms of making
Hmm.
a recommendation, especially where you didn't, again, I say you didn't go to a shelter and start,
Hmm.
hanging out with some dogs, and, gosh, I think this one might be a good fit.
Hmm.
Um, and I think that's something that oftentimes I follow a number of rescues online, and
Hmm.
I think that a lot of people, sadly and unfortunately, adopt dogs because they're cute.
Yes.
I love that,
Yes.
their face is great and whatever, but they're not
Yes.
necessarily considering the breed
Right.
or the additional, oh, by the way, information that might come along
Hmm.
with a rescue.
Hmm.
Um, do you know, Little Rhodey Rescue, is that
Hmm.
a foster only? Do they actually have a building that you go to, or?
Yes. Yep. There was a building. Great. Like everything looked great and clean, and obviously they took great care of the dog. So I remember they had like these little, like, in this separate section, these little kind of crates, but like open areas, and the dogs looked great. Like the dogs looked all well cared for. Unfortunately Cooper just didn't like being crated, and I don't know if that was something from the past or having to come up from Tennessee. But yeah, that I would definitely go back to them to get another dog. The sad reality when Cooper is no longer here, but just because of the whole way that we were treated the whole time, just such a positive experience.
Hmm. Hmm. Do you know how many volunteers that rescue has?
I honestly don't know because it was
Yeah,
such a long time ago, but
Mhm.
I would assume they have a good amount, but again, it is, 9, 10 years ago, so I'm
Sure.
not really sure at this point.
Yeah, yeah. And did they give you initially, and I'm posing these questions for anybody that might want to,
Mhm.
check out that particular rescue. Did they give you, resources or say, it sounds like you had some challenges afterwards and you
Mhm.
stayed in contact, but
Mhm.
sometimes what they'll do is provide a list and say, here, like if you have challenges, here's a pet sitter, a dog trainer,
Mhm.
a veterinarian. Um, how much did they give you in the way of resources?
So obviously all of his records and everything, but I did reach out to her when we were having some issues, the behavioral issues, which I think part of it was just him being a puppy and then other concerns that we had at the time. And she was, I sent her messages on Facebook and she was super receptive, but she definitely gave me some ideas. Unfortunately, with Cooper, we've tried like doggy daycares and even, tried creating him to go on vacation with some different dog places, but I just he's he's been kicked out of doggy daycare not because he's
Gee,
aggressive, but just because of that anxiety that they're afraid that he's going to have a hard time, and
right,
he kind of just cowers in the corner. Even I mean, it's been probably 5 years ago or so, or even a little bit longer, where we've tried, and they're like, you know what, he's a sweet boy, but we're just more concerned about him and how he's feeling.
right.
But we did get some great resources
Yeah.
from Kate.
That's awesome because one of the first dogs that my husband and I adopted together, to be fair, I don't want to throw rescues under the bus, but
Mm-hmm.
rescue was different, 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
We did something similar. We went online, found a dog. Um, I think we did PayPal for the
Yep.
adoption fee.
Yep.
And this dog literally was transported from Indiana to Connecticut. And we met,
Mm-hmm.
the doggy bus, if you will, off of I-90, whatever in
Mm-hmm.
Connecticut. And at the time, it was here's a leash, here's a
Mm-hmm.
packet, good luck.
Yes.
It was not, it, I don't want to throw, I think everybody's doing the best that they can. So it's difficult for me to say this without feeling like I'm throwing somebody under the bus, but it was
Mm-hmm.
kind of a like good luck situation and call us if you need us, but there's not a whole lot
Mm-hmm.
we can do kind of
Mm-hmm.
thing. Um, so I do think people have to be careful when they're
Yes,
doing that because if this is how unfortunately dogs wind up at local shelters and then and then
absolutely.
and then they're euthanized.
Mm-hmm.
Um, when we adopted our other dogs after he passed, same thing. He was a bit of a cranky old man, didn't do well in doggy daycare. Like
Yeah.
it was a boarding was a situation anytime
Mm-hmm.
we went on vacation. But when we rescued our other dogs, it was a much more, dare I say, methodical process. It was an
Mm-hmm.
interview. What is your lifestyle like?
Mm-hmm.
Do you guys work 12 hours a day? And is the dog, how long is the dog going to be crated for? And that kind of thing.
Right.
So I
Yeah.
appreciate that. Um, and it sounds like Little Roadie Rescue was, very willing to work with you because at the end of the day, they want the adoptions to be successful.
Absolutely. And I've had a similar experience with the Connecticut pickup for our original Rhodesian, I'm sorry, yeah, Coonhound, sorry, where we met in Connecticut, picked up the dog, and very similar where we had a previous dog to Riley, the Coonhound, that was heartworm positive. So when I was in the Air Force in Texas, we ended up adopting her there. We did the whole treatment, which was brutal. I think
Mhm.
it's like low dose of arsenic that they give the dog in 2 series, and so she survived that. And then when we saw Riley online, I said the same thing to the director. I said, please don't, and she was from Georgia. Please don't send her to me if she is heartworm positive, hoping that they would do their due diligence to double check her. As soon as she got up here, we brought her to our vet, and she had microfilaria, which is the baby heartworms in the blood. So it hasn't progressed. And that was a fight because I said, you guarantee that she was healthy and no heartworm. And then luckily, I actually paid for the treatment. But
Mhm.
they were very nonchalant about it. They even said, why don't you just ship her back down to Georgia and we'll take care of it for you. But I didn't feel really good about that either because
Mhm.
they've already kind of misrepresented themselves, and now, you know, it's not
Mhm.
our fault that you brought her, you let us adopt her knowing that she had these health conditions. So that's the thing where not all, but maybe some places down south don't. It's more like, okay, adopt the dog and good. That's one more dog off of our list. So
Mhm.
that was my concern. But I even had another rescue where we had another red bone coonhound that we unfortunately had to rehome. Didn't say that she was food aggressive. And knowing that we had Nolan as a toddler, that was our number one concern. And it actually broke my heart to have to rehome her. But
Mhm.
again, safety of our child is paramount.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, to back to your point, I feel like doing your research, talking to friends and family adopted from other places, I think is really, really helpful, and good to know. But still, ask the questions. Don't hesitate to push back if you don't feel comfortable with the information that you're getting. So
Mhm.
yeah, I think that for us, having to go through, maybe not so great experiences with other rescues, Little Rhodey Rescue was the best that we've found. I mean, we haven't, again, in the future, I'd love to see if other people have other recommendations. I think you and I have talked before about, where you went through for your dog. So, but I
Mhm.
think, Little Rhodey was great. So I would highly
Mhm.
recommend them to anybody.
Yeah. And you bring up a good point about getting a I'm all for, I mean, anybody can Google anything right
Hmm.
now and you can find a rescue anywhere, you can find an animal anywhere.
Hmm.
Um, but I'm very much in the camp of, if I can go to somebody who has had a great experience, with anything, I don't care if it's a
Hmm.
plumber, an electrician, in this case, we're talking about dog rescues.
Yeah.
I'm more inclined in general to go that route because
Hmm.
of what you just described. You don't want to adopt a dog, find out there's an issue, and then the rescue is just like, I don't know
Hmm.
what to tell you,
Hmm.
deal with it. Because had you not rehomed uh, that dog,
Hmm.
what very likely might have happened is that, now your son gets injured
Hmm.
because of an accident. He's learning to
Right.
walk, stumbles, falls into a food bowl or something like that.
Hmm.
And now all of a sudden we're euthanizing a dog because they're food aggressive.
Right.
And
Right.
it was just, just a bad set of circumstances that
Hmm.
played out.
And
So,
we tried everything. I mean, we went back to the rescue. We even talked to the foster family. We did everything that we could. So it wasn't like, nope, one shot and you're gone. So yeah, it was tough. And I kind of felt like, I mean, there was posts from that organization that, discussed what happened, and the comments were awful. Like, how could they do
yeah.
that? How could you, rehome? And again, my son comes first, so his safety is
Mhm.
number one. But
Mhm.
yeah, but Cooper's a good boy. He likes to get into trouble sometimes, so he's still, feisty for being a little bit of an old man.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, it sounds like he's very loved.
Hmm.
I wish
Hmm.
I'm
I know.
waiting for him to like
He's
photo,
right here. Let me see
like
if I can.
Zoom bomb.
Let me see if I can. Come here. Let me see if I can get him. Come on up, old man. Oh, here he goes. Let me see if I can bring him up here. There. Oh, no, he's not a fan of it.
All right. We won't make him. I get it. I get it.
He likes to, when he hears me talk to people, he likes to come in and be a little nosy. So
Yeah. We like nosy dogs.
yeah, yeah.
This has been awesome. I
Thank
appreciate you
you.
sharing your experience with Little Rhodey Rescue.
Hmm.
We didn't get a Zoom bomb, but
I know. I was
it's been,
hoping.
yeah. And I'm glad that you took the opportunity to share some of, maybe your not so positive experiences,
Hmm.
because, at the end of the day, what I hope that this podcast series does is educate people. Hey, you may want to ask these questions,
Hmm.
because if you're a new pet adopter, you don't know what to ask. And,
Right.
you're just, I just want a dog. I just want, I just want to love an animal.
Hmm.
And, sometimes people they make mistakes out of ignorance, not because they don't care, but because they
Right.
didn't realize. And
Exactly.
so
Exactly.
I'm glad that you were able to shed some light on that. Hopefully that will help somebody else in doing a little bit of a deeper dive and
Hmm.
making a decision as to where to adopt. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
All
This is
right.
great.
Well, thank you for spending part of your day with me. I hope you enjoy the rest of your day, and
Thank you. You too.
we'll be in touch soon.
Awesome. Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Bye bye.